Hello everyone, it's me and I'll be presenting about computer hardware components. So I'm going to explain about what are the hardware components and what they are and how they function on a hardware device. And I'm going to be talking about different types of hardware like internal systems and peripherals and backend storage. So CPU stands for Central Processing Unit, and it's the core of the computer. It's just basically similar to the brain in the human body, and without it, nothing will work. So this device handles all the hardware and software in the computer, which sometimes runs without you knowing about it. So it's basically like the core thing you need to get the computer working, basically. And the CPU helps to run the system on its own course as quickly as possible and is responsible for many things that a computer can do, like editing, copying, and pasting images or pasting text or text and processing information. So it's a very good thing that to have a CPU inside a computer. So the motherboard is like the backbone of the computer, which connects all the hardware together inside it. Some of the hardware components include CPU, hard drive, RAM, etc. So it has every single thing that's running the computer that makes up a computer inside the computer. So it allows all the hardware components inside the computer to operate by communicating with one another. So they all need to be connected in order for the system to run smoothly, basically. And each of them must operate in order for the system to work, as I just mentioned. So BIOS stands for Basic Input Output System. So it is a system which is stored in a small memory chip and is one of the hardware components which connects on the motherboard. So this is like a program that allows you to, I think it allows you to set up how you want your computer to be set up and how you want the way you want to work for your computer. So what BIOS does is it instructs the computer on how the basic functions are meant to be performed, and it includes boosting the computer and keypad control, or you can use mouse control. It's a bit like the accessibility type button. Like you get to choose the settings you want the computer to do. The power supply is PSU, which is a hardware component which supplies power to your computer. So the power is usually located inside a motherboard, and the main personal computers have it inside it rather than laptop. Yes, you won't really find it in laptops because they're very light and very portable, which means you can go take it on the go with you. And these is only found in those hard, huge computers like you have a PC at home, so you can find that on that. And it's very heavy indeed. And consists with many things inside that. Like it's very heavy and you have to install it very well. So the functions of this component is supplies all the power in various parts of the desktop. So if you turn the computer on, it means the whole system is actually on. So now you've turned that power supply on, the system will actually come on and you can do the work that you want to do on it. To fan, heat, sink or cooling. So all computers have a fan inside which is meant to be designed for the CPU so it won't overheat. So cooling fans make the computer cool and the heat brings hot air out of it. So the heatsink brings hot air out of it, sorry. So the heatsink is designed for drawing the heat away from a particular hardware which has been overheated, which you don't need to worry about it too much because you have the fan inside. And you should leave it to rest if the computer gets too hot or the device gets hot. I don't know if they have any laptops. I don't think they do. So USB stands for Universal Serial Bus, which is a type of computer port which is used to connect equipment such as keyboard, mouse, printer, scanner, digital camera, and so on and so forth to a computer. So it's a very portable thing. You can have it on you or it's already implemented. There's some that don't move. I'll get to that in a bit. So there are a few USB hubs that which can connect up to 127 peripheral devices onto a single port, and they can be used at the same time. So there's different types of USB shapes. This one you can have as a stick, or there's one that's like a box shape and it has the wire at the end of it. So, and there's one that you can get it's a bit like a small chip or something. It's a bit like a card. You can slip it in. You mainly find that in cameras and software, but you can. There's one that you can connect through USB. There's different ones, and there's different big sizes as well, like how many gigabytes that USB's got. Most people like to use the one that's like a disc shape, like a box shaped, because they feel there's more storage in it. And they're available. But I will tell you a story. But okay, I wanted to get a new USB because my other one's very slow, so I had to get another one. I wanted to get another one, so I bought another one. And unfortunately, I accidentally bought two. I was supposed to buy one, but I accidentally bought two from online. I bought it from Amazon, but they're quite a shady company. But you know, I bought from Amazon, and I got two delivered, not one. Then I saved one for myself because I wanted to use another USB as well. So I have two just in case. One of them is not working anymore, or one can be broken. And then my sister wanted the USB, so I had to give that USB to her because she needed it for university. So I gave it to her, and that's the story behind. It's not really, not as if I'm not considering that you're going to be interested in the story anyway, but I just decided to tell it for now. But there are different sizes like USBs, and you should pick the one that's more sufficient, I would say. Especially if you're going to use the one that's look like a card type USB. The random access memory, or RAM, is a computer memory which can be found in computers and other devices such as printers. So RAM can store data and it can be accessed randomly instead of sequentially, which is the reason why it's faster to access data. So unlike RAM is volatile, meaning once the power is turned off, all the contents are erased from it. So basically, that's what the RAM consists of. So it's they're both similar, ROM and RAM. I'll get to ROM in just now. So ROM is read-only stands for read only memory, which is similar to RAM, except you just have to read it. So the difference between the ROM and the RAM, so the ROM remembers the information while it's switched off, while the RAM cannot do that because once the power, like I said before, the power's off, it doesn't, all the contents are erased and you won't be able to find that data anymore. That data won't be there anymore. So, because you've already turned the power off. So the use of ROM is to read it rather than for it to be written. But RAM's made to be written, and ROM's made for reading, and it is used for BIOS programs which will instruct the computer to do what it's meant to do. Cache is a hardware component which stores data at a high speed. So there are two types of cache, memory and disk. So the memory is high speed memory, which is the memory cache is high speed memory, which is placed in the CPU so it can gain access to the data quickly. So the function of it is that it provides the processor the recent data. So you know when you go on the internet, that's where it comes from, basically. And you have this cache, cookies or cache that remembers where you've decided been or what website you've used. So it remembers that basically. So its performance is much quicker when storing devices than other hardware components. So it's much faster in terms of the performance side of storing data and getting it to be processed and things like that. So disk cache is a hardware device that stores copies of frequent files into the RAM. So that one works through the RAM, not through the CPU like the other one. It makes the CPU more powerful, I guess, or more adapted, if that's the right word to use. But the functions of this device is that it retrieves documents locally since it is much quicker. So it's much quicker. So they're both quick, but they're not. But I think the memory one's much faster than the disk one, cache. So network and graphics cards. So these are normally these are specialized cards that are expansion slots which allow the life of computers to be extended. Since new and emerging technologies are now available, which you can find on different devices such as a modem, sound card, network interface card, and there are different. These are normally used for those. If you specialize in graphic design, I would suggest you might consider this bit of the presentation. I know somebody that does it, but I am not an expert on graphic design. It's not my area. It's film. Film is actually my area, not graphic design. But I do feel it's important to talk about technology, hardware and software in films and stuff. Particularly hardware, because hardware is what you use to work things. And you need hardware to work with, because you can't have hardware without software. Software without hardware, if you can't get the access it. You can't access it basically if you don't have hardware. The hardware is the most important part of it. So a network computer card is a device which connects a computer onto a computer network and usually uses an LAN. Most computers nowadays use network cards to connect. So LAN stands for local access network basically. And the function of a network is that it allows the computer to exchange data with the network. So The purpose of it is to exchange the data, the network data, and yeah, basically. If you have any comments about network and graphic cards, please put in the comments down below. Thank you. And a graphics card is important for digital graphics because this hardware is good for making imagery to have better quality. So you need very good quality images to be able to edit. And if you work with graphics, I would, and you know about this type of thing, please put in the comments. So this device is good for editing images and graphics. I think nowadays we get new computers that are very good with the resolution of an image. So the image resolution increases, like, because the vector images are more clearer than the. Nowadays we have HD and 4K, which in terms of seeing images and resolution, I think the amount of pixels you got, the more pixels you got, the more better or clearer the images are. And this is a very good hardware to use. So do this. You can find them in Curry's PC World. I would personally recommend talking to somebody about getting a graphics card or a network card, computer card, if you're considering that. Because I would do that as well if I was in your shoes. Whoever's in shoes, whoever's considering it, I would recommend you do that. So to do this is to change the settings about to the highest level, but users have a good graphics card to be able to have control of the settings. So I think that's important, that you need to talk to somebody, a computer, someone that's an expert on finding graphics cards. And I know somebody that does graphics, but I'm not sure if they know more about this type of thing. But do speak to a specialist, I would say. So I won't be able to help you with that. So hard drive configuration and controllers. So a hard drive is a hardware component which is used for storing large amounts of data, and most files are stored and folders are permanently stored into unless it's been damaged, which means all the data is lost. So it can store files such as pictures, documents, and even the operating system and the applications. So any applications that you've installed is also installed into the hard drive, and the operating system itself, because it's a software as well. So everything inside the computer is stored into the hard drive. So SATA stands for Serial Advanced Technology Attachment. It's the faster version of the original PATA cable, which is used for attaching hard drives into computer systems. IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment, and it's a device like the SATA, but it was made in the 90s to design. It was designed in the 90s to connect itself into the motherboard, to the motherboard. So the master cable is the one that controls the process of the drive. So it retains data and passes to the slave drive, which does most of the processing. And the slave can only see the data that the master cable passes to it, and it does all the processing of the data itself. The master cable don't really need to do much, hence the names. Peripherals. So any device that can input or output any information is called a peripheral device, always known as peripherals. So input devices are used to send data into computer systems, and they can be used to interact with it. So an input device could include a keyboard, for example. Because keyboards, you can type the information in. And a USB stick, because you can input the USB and copy the files over to maybe another USB or to a cloud system or something. An output devices are used for getting the information out of the computer system, and they are processed that you can use to output information. So basically, I'm giving an example like when you type something on the blank document and you're typing like a few words and here and there, the output process, for example, is a printer. So you press Control P, which is a quick way to get to see the settings that you want in order to print your work. So the printer outputs that the paper basically. So that document becomes paper. So soft copy becomes a hard copy. So storage devices are used to store data, which is the process that's divine, that's done by the computer. So USB, like I said, is an example of a storage device or that could be used to store data and to copy and paste files in. So a monitor is the thing that is a device that's plugged inside the tower. And without the monitor, you won't be able to see anything. You won't get any images projecting through the screen. So you can see things like pictures, videos, films. You can see like icons and many things really. So the monitor inside a computer is better. But nowadays you can visualize images in HD, but you have to use a HDMI cable so that it boosts the image even more when you're watching videos or looking at some pictures. That's that applies to TVs and things like that. And you can use cables to connect from one computer to another. You can use a computer. You can connect a smaller computer to a bigger one, to a screen. Or you could do it through your phone or some device that allows you to connect one computer to another. But nowadays, computers are made with HD. Computer screens monitors are HD, and there's some that are 4K. I think it improves the resolution of the image and of the video quality. And the quality of the image is some people find it very important because I think in films we like to have very good quality images. We don't like anything that's a bit blurry and a bit hard to see because working with images that are very, very, you want to see the images. It's 4K, but 4K is I think it's very expensive. That's the only thing that I would say about 4K. Because there's some people have 4K TVs in their house. And there's even 3D TVs, which I kind of don't think is necessary to get a 3D TV, to be honest with you. A HD TV is very good. Because HD, you can see images more clearly and it's more sharper, which is a very good thing about having HD. I know my grandma wasn't a huge fan of it to begin with, but I think she's warming up to it. So, because it's going to be part of this world. And everything's changing every day. And there's always a good thing that seeing good quality images, pictures, films, videos, anything. So printer is an output device that works by receiving data through the computer and any other hardware devices and networks like the USB cable and Bluetooth. So you can use a USB to actually print something out as well. So you can input it in the printer, what the document is and how many pages you're going to print it out with. And Bluetooth. I've never been a huge fan of Bluetooth because I know it's wireless, but you have to be like around the area. You need to be local to it or be close to the space that you are using that Bluetooth, which is kind of an annoying thing, really. So it is turned into sheets of paper which can be printed out, and this device is important when it comes down to graphics. So the user has to print out work on a piece of paper. So paper is basically hard copy. It turns soft copy to hard copy. That's all I'm going to say. So a digital camera, many people don't really realize that a camera's type of hardware component. And it's used for capturing images which are taken by the user. And it has to be edited, not using the camera. So you can't use the camera to edit because you're only capturing raw footage or capturing images. Raw footage is basically moving the image that's been filmed. But using specialist software such as Adobe Photoshop, there's other software that's for editing as well, like Adobe After Effects. You can use Adobe Premiere Pro. You could use Final Cut Pro, Video, which is the one I'm using right now. There's KineMaster. There's other editing software for images and videos. So a digital camera can also take pictures which are HD and can be transferred into different hardware devices. So back to the software part, you have to install software or you can actually do it online. Like I was able to find Video online because I'm using a Google Chrome computer. Because my Windows, I'm trying to get a new computer device that's Windows, so it's easier for me to work more freely, basically. And I can use certain programs that I like to use on Windows. So a digital camera can also take pictures, as I said, that are HD, but there's 4K now. 4K cameras can be very expensive and pricey. There's some that, like I said, it's very expensive. HD is very expensive as well, but it's not as expensive as 4K. It's just that 4K images are much more better and the files are much bigger if you're using 4K, to be honest, than HD. I think it's like 4 times bigger in terms of the size of the size of the clips, individual clips and stuff. And it can be transferred to hardware devices. Like I said, you can use a SD card to edit, to input the software, to input into the computer, and then you select what images you want to edit with, or edit with. So that's how you operate with a digital camera. A scanner is a device that scans images, handwriting, and printed text. So the scanner's function is kind of similar to a printer. So but it scans hard copy and it turns it into soft copy. So hard copy is now become soft copy. So it's a bit opposite. It's quite an opposite to a printer in terms of the operation of it. So there are different types of scanners which can be used not only for paper but for other items that are 3D, which can be only used for scanning 3D images. Yes, there's some that I think we don't. I've been to a place where they do 3D printing, which is kind of similar but not really. I've done 3D printing, it's kind of similar to this, but and they had this computer and the device, it's like a box, and it showed you you have to wait for it to be printed, and it's very, you need to be careful when you're near it. I might show you 3D printing another time, I'm not entirely sure. It's quite expensive to find 3D printers because they cost quite a lot of money, and the software that you need does cost a lot of money to install. So you do need to be mindful of that. There's an Adobe scanner, if I believe, and then you can install phone apps that allows you to scan your hard copy and turn it into a PDF, which is always a good thing if you don't have the software or a scanner at home. You can use a phone. I can't remember the app that I used to turn the document into a USB. Turn the document into a hard copy to soft copy. I can't remember what the name of the document is. But it's the app. But it's a very useful thing if you don't have scanner, anything to scan with. You just use your phone, especially at this time of the pandemic. We're in a pandemic now, and this is quite a useful thing for you if you are considering using scanners. So Plotter is an output device which has similar functions to a printer. This only is a special. This is a specialized printer that's used only for vector graphics. So vector is a type of imagery basically, and it's been drawn. It uses this device uses command lines that are given from a computer to make the printer draw out the images that are being printed out. So you need to be an expert on this, and it does show you how to do it. You give it command lines. It's basically a bit like code. So you need to learn how to code that and be able to understand, be able to program it. Program the, yeah, you use the computer and you implement the information, you program it, and you basically get the computer to do the the graphics that you want to put on that piece of paper. So it uses the pen to make the image which a normal printer only uses pixels. So this is quite a complex process, I would tell you. But I haven't done it myself, but it is a very complicated process. And it's kind of it takes a long time to do what you want it to do. So ports is a hole or connection point that is found in front or behind the computer that allows, or side of the computer that allows external devices such as keyboards and mouse to be connected and accessed to the computer. A serial port is a type of connection that is located in PCs and is used for peripheral devices such as mice and older printers. A serial port can transfer one bit of data at a time, and it's the slowest ports that can be found in the PC. But there are new ports which are available in shops and are more compatible. So you do need to check for compatibility, just to be sure. And parallel ports are a type of connection that's also is mainly used by printers and is faster than the serial port because so much data can be transferred at the same time. So you can tell from this that I think it's based on the size. That's why I think it's based on the size, on in terms of the quickness of how they transfer the data. And you can have these smaller ones. There's a mouse one and a keyboard one. And there's a games port, which is mainly used for joysticks. Joystick is another term for USB. It's similar to a USB. So cabling is quite important in terms of hardware. So a cable is one or more wires covered in plastic and are used for connection from a computer to a power source or another device. So there are different types of cabling which are used for computer networks. Computer networking, which do include coaxial cable, which is made out of copper and is usually installed in the television industry. It's usually used in the television industry and is also used for connecting computer networks such as the Ethernet, which is basically a cable that's used to connect your computer to the internet through a router. So you connect the router and the Ethernet cable through your computer. So you can have access to the internet. So it is more expensive to buy and it carries more data. The optical cables have threads in them, which are also known as fibers, which are made out of either glass or plastic. So this cable also has light beams, which can be which can transfer data, and these cables are longer than the coaxial cables, and they carry more data. So they are both expensive, but the optical cables are more expensive and they're actually more fragile. They're more expensive to install, but they're very fragile because of the material that it's made out of. So if you got someone to install it, or you're installing it, or you have that cable at home, you do need to be wary of that. So twisted cables, this is the type of cable which two single wires which are twisted around together, and it's usually used by older telephone networks, and they're the least expensive cables that a user can buy. So you find it on your telephone, basically. So backend storage is a type of storage which you can copy the original copy of a file or folder onto a backend device. So there are different types of backend device which can store files such as disks, pen drives, optical media, and flash memory cards. There are also portable devices, meaning that you can take it with you on the go. They're usually small and lightweight items like USB stick, mobile phone, laptops. And you can go anywhere with it. You can go on holiday with it. You can go to work or go to school, university with it. So fixed drives are drives that are supposed to be, they remain inside a computer and they cannot be removed. So those devices are fixed. So like this one, the external optical drive is very big and it stays inside a computer. You cannot remove it at all. And you get different ones like your iPod, like this iPod here and the memory card reader. These are portable. So a disk, so magnetic disks come in different forms of magnetized dots, which represents the data being stored into it. So they can be created, read, and erased. So these devices are used for backing up storage, like a hard disk, floppy disk, and a removable cartridge. So the difference between a hard disk and a floppy disk. So the hard disk can store data quickly and has a larger storage capacity of 1 terabyte, meaning that it can store lots of data. And the floppy disk is much slower. And you can find this on, I think you can go to a shop and find some of this if you need. It's quite useful, but it's not really portable, I would say. And you can install it into your computer. Optical media is like a disk. It's type of backing storage which data can be stored inside the disk. So it's a bit like a, basically, when you use optical storage, data can be come in forms of dots which can be read through light with a laser beam. So it's read through the reflection light onto a surface of the disk, so it can be read. So the data can be read. The data that's contained inside it can be read through it. So there are different types of optical drives which are used, such as CD-ROM, DVD, and so on. So I will tell you how this works. So I know this man in my film club, and he basically, I haven't done it myself, but I know how it works. But I won't remember fully the process. So you put the disc, you pick an empty disc, and you put the DVD inside. You go to after you finish editing, you need to calibrate rendered the edits, the film, and all that stuff, and then you burn it onto a disc. Which, not burn it literally, but it's like a process that you have to do to be able to get the film copied into the disc. So you burn the disc, and you have to wait for quite a bit for it to be processed inside it. I'm not sure if I'm explaining it right, but if you know the process without me, if you can explain the process better, I would appreciate that in the comments. But you'll get what I'm trying to say. So that's how you do it. You burn the disc and you wait for a while until then you could do the same thing with another disc. So you put one disc at a time, you do the same for the others. You have to keep, it's kind of a long process. But that's how we do it in films. So portable and fixed drives. Portable drives are hard drives. Hard disks which can connect devices like USB sticks and cords into it. Then it can be removed and transferred to one computer to another. So it can be stored onto many computers, all the data. So fixed drives are hardware components, but mainly it refers to a hard drive that can be used for storage. So they're usually inside a computer and they cannot be removed from its original position. There's a difference between portable devices you can take with you and they can easily be removed. But fixed drives are not portable and they remain internally inside the computer. So you cannot remove them or uninstall them. You cannot take anything out from it. So this is like a diagram that I've made. So you can see the whole, it looks complicated, but it's quite easy to get. So you input all the data inside the CPU, LOU, or CU, whatever you want to say. And then you output that data that you're onto that output device. And there's memory, like random access memory, and there's backend storage, like a hard disk or something. So to conclude this presentation, I have explained the internal hardware devices and some of the peripherals and how they input and output information, and how the data rates and capacity of some devices can store their data. So I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. I know it's a very long one, a very explanatory one at that, but please like, share, subscribe to my channel if you want to see any more videos like this. And here are the references if you really want to check it out or read about what I just presented. So I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video.